My feelings on this movie are complicated. Complicated in the sense that I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I didn't dislike it, but it washed over me. I remember coming away from my screening in 2020 without any strong opinions. The only things the movie left me with were a desire for a Big Mac and a deep sense of dread in realizing that product placement really does work. If you were to ask me to describe the movie back then, I would have probably said that it was beautifully confused, a visual marvel that didn't quite know where to land, with plot elements that sometimes didn't amount to very much, and an ending that, while bold, didn't feel complete. Questions like, why did this happen, or what was the point of it all, colored my experience, those lingering thoughts staying with me for years. Recently, I rewatched the movie, and it was as if I saw something new, where all the pieces fell into place. Years of confusion turned into understanding in a way that revealed assumptions I had made that the movie itself was trying to question. It's messy, complicated, and challenging in ways that I never realized, and it made me think that maybe I missed the point. I can stand here now and say that I think this is the most morally complex movie Makoto Shinkai has ever made, one filled with empathy and understanding for the people the movie is trying to speak to, one that directly tries to address the existential anxieties they might feel. It offers no easy answers, nor does it try to deny the reality of what's happening in the world. And in that way, it refuses to condemn the people who have the most to lose. After years of misunderstanding the movie's goals, what it aims to do, I can tell you now that I finally understand Weathering with You. Weathering with You was originally released in Japan in July 2019 with a US release in January 2020. From Studio Comics Wave Films and writer-director Makoto Shinkai, the story follows Hodaka Morishima, a teenage boy from rural Japan who runs away to Tokyo and befriends an orphan girl, Hina Amano, who one day gains the power to control the weather. Weathering with You is the second movie in Shinkai's so-called disaster trilogy, which also includes Your Name and Suzume. If you had asked me before to rank them, I probably would have said Your Name, Suzume, then Weathering with You. I didn't think it was bad, I just thought it followed the Your Name formula to varying degrees of success. In 2020, it was hard not to see this movie as anything other than the follow-up to Your Name. And in my defense, the movie leans into that with cameos from Mitsuha and Taki. But here's how much my opinions have changed. I'd probably put Weathering with You at the top of that list now. Looking back, it was unfair to judge the movie on Your Name's terms, and that's on me. The formulas are similar if you squint enough, a romance in the midst of a disaster, but these movies aim to do completely different things. Because Weathering with You is not a romance movie. It has romantic elements, sure, but first and foremost, it is a movie about climate change, and if anyone tells you otherwise, well, I'm not really sure what they watched. You are bombarded with news broadcasts throughout the movie about how the rain Tokyo is experiencing is not normal. People constantly talk about how much it rains and how much that sucks. I don't think that's a controversial take. The movie is pretty blatant about it, but I have seen criticisms when it comes to this, mainly that as an allegory for climate change, Weathering with You is kind of bad. Before we go any further though, I want to be clear. Climate change is real, and that should not be up for debate. This is a man-made problem that needs to be systemically addressed. And that's one of the things I found so frustrating about the movie at first. For one thing, the mythology of the world sort of obfuscates people as the cause, which I found concerning, and it focuses too heavily on individual sacrifice as the solution. You can say that's me bringing my own personal beliefs into the text, but I think if you're going to make a movie about something as dire and real as climate change, you need to do so responsibly. That's even more true in an allegory that tries to offer a solution. And if you take this text at face value, the ending is really bleak. It's almost doomer in how things end up. Hina chooses not to sacrifice herself and drowns all of Tokyo. Millions suffer because of her decision. There's a reading of the text where the movie is trying to say things are too far gone at this point, so why bother fighting it? Why not choose love in the face of damnation? It's hedonistic in a way that comes off as deeply irresponsible to me. Hina and Hodaka are portrayed as selfish individuals who choose themselves instead of the greater good. And for a problem as systemic as climate change, that's just not a very productive conversation to have. All of that is why I was so conflicted with Weathering with You. I saw it as a profoundly messy allegory wrapped in a beautiful looking and sounding package. And because of the way it handled that allegory, the characters came off as irresponsible, bratty, and downright unlikable because of the choices they make. Hina uses her powers to essentially extort people. Hodaka runs off to Tokyo for reasons he can't bother to explain, fires a gun at people just trying to do their jobs, and on top of it all, they doom the people of Tokyo who have done nothing but try to live their lives. That's what I thought about this movie for a while. It was a story about characters that I just couldn't stomach. Which brings me to a very specific book. Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger was originally published in July 1951. The novel follows Holden Caulfield, a prep school flunky, as he wanders around New York City. This might seem like a weird book to bring up when talking about Weathering with You, but it's a comparison the movie wants us to make. There are exactly 2 times we see Hodaka reading this book, considering that someone took the time to specifically animate it into the movie twice. I have to believe that it's intentional. At a glance, there's not much connecting these stories outside of following teenagers and broadly being coming-of-age plots. But what I want to bring attention to are my critiques about the characters in Weathering with You. They are strikingly similar to critiques of Holden Caulfield. Don't worry, this won't be a deep analysis of Catcher in the Rye, but I think understanding Holden is important in understanding Hina and Hodaka. If you skim through Catcher in the Rye, you will notice 2 things. 1, nothing really happens, and 2, Holden is quite unlikable. He constantly goes on about how phony everyone is, while at the same time lying to almost everyone he encounters in New York about who he is and what he's doing. He whines, complains, and keeps asking people about ducks. But if you actually try to sit with this story, if you really try to understand Holden, you come away thinking a few things. He contradicts himself a lot, he's naive almost to a fault, and he is a deeply broken individual. There are passages where he talks about his dead brother from a distance, as if performing the persona of someone unaffected by it, even when it's very clear that it's something he hasn't gotten over yet. His questions about the ducks and what happens to them in the winter, it's a question about himself. What is he supposed to do in the winter he's currently living in? Through Holden's eyes, Catcher in the Rye follows a kid wandering through New York City, desperately trying to find someone, anyone at all, who will ask him if he's alright. And when viewed through that lens, the silence of the city is damning. So, here's a question. How many times is Hodaka asked why he ran away from home? Maybe a couple? 2 or 3? He is asked exactly once. Not by Keisuke, not by the police, but by Hina, the only other teenager the movie follows. That might seem like a small thing, but once you notice that, you begin to notice a lot of other things about the wider world Hina and Hodaka live in. For all the talk about the rain and weather in this movie, why is it that we don't hear anyone talk about something they're doing about it? Why doesn't anyone seem willing to try and accommodate for the rain in their lives? The street market doesn't entertain the thought of, just moving inside, and God forbid they cancel the fireworks show for any reason. It seems like the most anyone is willing to do to address this problem in any capacity is pay a group of teenagers to pray the rain away. None of that is to say that all of these people are bad or evil. They aren't. I'm not heartless. Of course, I think it sucks to have your wedding rained on. I want all these girls to be able to show off all their hard work in their cosplay. These are honest people, just trying to live their lives. And I get that, I do. But the general attitude is that no one in the city wants their lives to change. Tokyo, society at large as it is portrayed in the movie, is not evil or malevolent, but it is indifferent to the suffering going on in people like Hina and Hodaka's lives. And it fails to make accommodations for them. Hina and Nagi are orphans, siblings who don't want to leave each other, but with the way things are, they would be forced to. Hodaka ran away from home. We never find out why, but the bandages on his face the first time we see him should be enough to say that it was probably for a good reason, to the point where he's willing to live in poverty rather than go back. For these kids, the only people who really seem to care about them are each other. And I don't think I'm reading too deeply into that. But you might think, well, that's not really fair to someone like Keisuke. After all, he gave Hodaka a job and a place to stay. He's been in Hodaka's shoes before. He can empathize with him. And I think that's totally true. Keisuke can empathize with Hodaka, which is exactly why he should know how much of a slap in the face it is to tell Hodaka to grow up and go home, knowing full well that the problems that caused Hodaka to run away haven't been addressed. It's complacency disguised as aid. Keisuke is willing to help Hodaka out, but the moment things become inconvenient, well, that's it. Here's some money to help with whatever problems you had. This is the world Hina and Hodaka are being asked to save, one that does not care for them, constantly fails them, and does not want to change for any reason. That's the hypocrisy at the heart of this story. When it comes down to it, Hina is being asked to sacrifice herself for a world that would not do the same for her. And if she did sacrifice herself, then what happens? Nothing changes. Things go back to normal for a time, but then the whole cycle with the Weather Maiden starts again. What I originally saw as a thematic element that argued for individual sacrifice as the solution to climate change actually argues against that. A cycle where children are sacrificed for stability for a time? That's a band-aid, not a fix. I realized that my initial critiques of this movie came from looking down at Hina and Hodaka instead of looking up at the systemic issues that cause them to act the way they do. The Holden Caulfield lens. This movie challenges you to look at these characters and question the broader world around them. Why is it that no one seems willing to do anything about the rain? Why are the police so bad at their job? Why is Hina being asked to sacrifice herself for a world that does not care about her? The more I started to question the systems at play instead of the children who just happened to be there, the more I realized that this isn't actually a movie about climate change. It's a movie with climate change as its backdrop, but this movie is about power, who gets to hold it, and what that means. And nothing in the movie makes that more clear than one of its most baffling plot elements. At about 10 minutes into the movie, Hodaka finds a loaded gun. And let me tell you, I could not get my head around this thing for the longest time. This plot point seemed so far removed from everything else that happens that it felt random. But I knew it was there for a reason. I just didn't know what that was. It's worth noting just how incredibly taboo guns are in Japan. Japan has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the world. Handguns are straight up banned. Carrying an unregistered gun with matching bullets can get you 7 years in prison, and firing that gun can be a life sentence. These things are seen as overwhelmingly dangerous, powerful, and they are exceedingly rare. So, what does it mean that the movie prominently features a 15-year-old kid finding one by chance? Hodaka does not go out of his way to obtain it. He does not want it. He doesn't even think it's real at first. Like I said, I didn't know what to make of this plot point. It just didn't seem to fit. But when you start to view the movie as a story about power instead of an allegory for climate change, it begins to make a bit more sense. In this movie, a gun is the ultimate symbol of power, something dangerous with the ability to change lives. and it finds its way into Hodaka's hands through circumstances outside of his control. What do you do with this immense power you did not ask for? If I were in Hodaka's shoes, I'd be like him, at a loss and utterly confused. He holds on to it because what else can he do? Turn it in and face punishment for something he didn't want? It stays in the background for most of the movie, but its presence is known, a literal Chekhov's gun. When it's brought back at the end of the movie, when Hodaka points it at the police, they're horrified that he has a gun and don't know what to do. But the key here is framing. This is not a random act of violence. It is a culmination of systemic failures that leads to this moment. I see it as an indictment of the world around Hodaka. It gave him power and forced him to hold on to it against his will. Should the police be surprised when Hodaka decides to use it against them when he tries to save Hina? Not really. It makes sense for a kid who does what everyone else in the movie around him has done. Tried to live his life. The power to change lives is what Hodaka was given without his consent. And if Hodaka's situation sounds familiar, it's because Hina was put into the exact same position. The world unknowingly handed these kids a gun and then forced them into a position to use it. This is a movie about power, who is given power and what they decide to do with it. And that is an infinitely more interesting story than simply being a movie about climate change, because it takes a perspective that I rarely see, the perspective of the people at the heart of this crisis who have the most to lose. Hina and Hodaka are not individuals in this conversation, they are stand-ins for an entire generation. This is not a movie about the morality of saving the world. It tries to do something much harder than that. Empathize with those tasked with fixing something they didn't break. In making the movie, Shinkai wrote, "I feel it's wrong for us, people making films for a younger audience, to force a story on them about reclaiming the balance of the world. That is too egoistic and irresponsible. What then can we say to that audience? The world fucked up. It created this situation where the future of humanity is on the line and then placed the onus of fixing that problem onto a younger generation. A power we did not want and did not ask for. What are we supposed to do with that power? Sacrifice ourselves to a world that wouldn't make the same sacrifices for us? It's a power we're told we wield for the sake of the greater good, but are we not included in that greater good?" Weathering with You speaks to younger generations on our terms. It's a movie that understands our climate anxieties and has the bravery to say, whatever happens next, it is what it is. We were given a gun, and with that, the power to use it. The movie ends with Tokyo underwater, with Hina and Hodaka together. It doesn't disparage them for that choice. It doesn't say that what they did was wrong. I don't think Shinkai was saying that things are too late, that they can't be fixed. If he was, he wouldn't have given Hina the power to change the weather. But he tries to say that it's fine if we choose whatever we do. Things will be alright if we don't save the world for whatever reason that is. Because it's not our fault that this was the power placed in our hands. Weathering with You is a message. Shinkai's message from the older generation to the new. An acknowledgement of the power we were given to save the world that has the courage to show a positive future if we can't. It doesn't hide behind platitudes of the future is in our hands whilst expecting us to act a certain way. It's his way of easing our anxieties about the immense pressures placed upon us. The simple message that no matter what happens, things will continue. Because the burden of the future isn't ours to bear alone. It's the product of the world that came before us and led us to this point. We can choose the path we want because that's what we were given. Rain or shine, the future is ours, and no one can take that away. as always, thank you so much for watching. I've been meaning to put this one out there for a while. It's been a long time coming, but better late than never, I guess. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing, and if you want to support the channel even further, consider visiting my Ko-fi or my Patreon. All the music I use for videos are posted there along with my scripts, and you can even get your name at the end of videos like these fine people here. Any support is greatly appreciated. It makes videos like these possible. There also might be a Discord in the future. No promises, but is that something you guys want? Let me know. But that's it from me. Thanks again for watching and stopping by this little corner of the internet, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Shoots.